Why are these potentially crippling illnesses becoming so romanticized? For centuries, mental illness was hardly recognized. People who were depressed were told to just be happy, and people with anxiety were told to just stop stressing. People who were recognized as having something wrong with them were often locked up and treated very poorly to even brutally, often in an attempt to cure them. Luckily, in the 21st century, mental health has been more and more recognized as an actual problem. People have recognized illnesses like depression, anxiety, PTSD, OCD, schizophrenia, and many others as not just something that is in someone's head, but with an underlying issue. This gives hope for people who have these illnesses, because they have become more open about it, and help is more friendly than ever. But something has driven this hard work backwards. As society begins to try and get rid of the stigma and misunderstanding of mental health issues, it also at the same time is creating more stigma. This is due to the infamous but complex romanticization of mental illness. The definition of romanticization: to think about or describe something as being better or more attractive or interesting than it really is. We often see romanticization in TV shows, movies, books, or social media. A good example of this is if someone were to say, man, it would be so cool to be a soldier in the army, training every day, fighting wars, it'd be so cool. When in reality, training every day and fighting wars is not fun. Many people come back from war with physical and mental scarring. War is traumatizing, bloody, and brutal, and there is nothing cool about it, but we still hear people think of it this way. Romanticization of mental health is the same. People discussing mental illness as something to be desired, or a quirk if you have it. But where does this happen? Where is all of this toxic behavior occurring? Well, to put it simply, social media. The heart and core of this issue that is now joining us in daily life is social media. And that's to a site that is considered to some as the rock bottom of social media, Tumblr. The site is very accessible and attracts lots of teenagers, specifically teenage girls, and is where most of the posts and comments romanticizing mental health originated. Sure, there are other places where this behavior lurks, but Tumblr, as far as research goes, is the biggest culprit. Sick of crying, tired of trying, yeah, I'm smiling, but inside I'm dying. A typical quote from a Tumblr post romanticizing the idea of depression. Quoting Asif Ali, who has done an article on this very issue, if I had a nickel for every time I saw a post like this, or with a similar tone, on social media platforms, I'd be holidaying in Corsica. The immense number of posts like this just shows how many things people will do for attention. One post that I found that is also from Tumblr is this. TBWFW, which is an acronym for, I'm guessing, something similar to that moment when, but I couldn't really find the exact meaning. You start displaying symptoms of another mental illness and you get excited. This is wrong on so many levels. One, it's using the fact that you are starting to show another mental illness as a sort of way to gain attention on social media. And two, is making out the fact that you are starting to show signs of another mental illness as a good thing or something to be excited about. People who actually have mental illnesses are never excited when a new one just pops up. These are diseases that cripple people's lives and make things so much harder than they are, and the fact that people like this just think it's cool or quirky to have one is sickening. The person who posted this most likely has nothing wrong with them, apart from the fact that they think this is okay. The reason why? Because it's almost certain that if someone were to actually have a mental illness, they would never be posting about it or celebrating it. Or at least the majority wouldn't. This brings me to my next point, the fact that people are faking mental illness to become cool or quirky. Another quote from Asif Ali in his article about romanticizing mental illness was, being in depression, experiencing anxiety, having bipolar disorder, and even blading the arm has emerged to be beautiful, unique, or cool. People have gone so far to faking these types of illnesses on social media and in everyday life to have something to sort of make them unique. This is just unacceptable. It's like if somebody was faking a disease like diabetes just because they thought it was cool or quirky to have something wrong with them. People are literally faking a disease they have zero idea about and what it's like to actually experience it. As well as this just being straight up lies, it also increases stigma regarding mental health. people who fake this kind of thing often go over the top, or use it as an excuse to do or not do things. This just makes people who look on the outside and think, oh, this is what every bipolar person is like, annoying and moody, thus increasing stigma. People are too afraid to seek help who actually have something wrong because they do not want to be dubbed as an attention seeker. My last quote from Ali's article I think sums up my idea perfectly. It's also a little long. Let's be bluntly politically incorrect right now. You aren't depressed just because people aren't responding to your texts. You aren't bipolar just because a movie is making you happy and sad at the same time. You don't have an anxiety disorder just because you have stage fright. These conditions are extensively serious beyond many's imagination. Please do not normalize it or exaggerate your situation. Don't let the internet tell you that you have something wrong with you. Don't let those online quizzes make you believe something otherwise. It's not a cool thing to experience depression. Being depressed doesn't make you different and special. My last point, which is probably something that has become more and more prominent recently, is mental health merchandise. This kind of stuff has started to become more and more popular as the issue of romanticizing mental health continues to rise. The problem includes, but is not limited to, the clothes shown in the introduction of the video. For this topic, I'll cite a video, The Rise of Romanticizing Mental Illness and Why It Must Be Stopped, by Luke Alexander. In this video, he briefly talks about the topics I've listed above, but he also mentions and gives quite a few examples of mental health merchandise. The video has a comedic undertone and has over 1 million views. In the video, one of the first things mentioned is an influencer's merchandise profiting off of anxiety and masking it with a donation to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, worth 15% of the profits. These are some of the merchandise she was selling. Luke Alexander quickly points out that the majority of the comments on this influencer's post were negative, saying things like, "You really out here trying to profit off of mental illness, and this illness has ruined my life, and you making a profit off it is sick." This is the exact problem. People are trying to profit off of the mentally ill by making merch, referencing it and glamorizing it, and masking this tactic by donating, frankly, a very small amount to charity. Take a look at this. This is a shirt with a girl's suicide note printed on it. Let me repeat that for you. A girl's suicide handwritten note has been printed on the front of a t-shirt and is being sold to the public. This just speaks for itself. The fact that this is something that is okay in some people's mind is shocking and frankly sickening. This is a problem that needs to be stopped. Stigma is a terrible thing. I think we can all agree with that. But it'll never fully go away. But the romanticization of these disorders does not help that case. Society needs to learn the consequences of stigma and the fact that people aren't going to get help because of the stigma surrounding it, and the fact that doing such drastic things to decrease stigma just increases it.